Barron Trump steps onto the small wooden stage, the creak of the floorboards barely louder than the restless murmurs of the audience. He adjusts the microphone with a steady hand, his face somber, almost too serious for someone his age. The crowd, veterans, retirees, proud parents and grandparents, quiets instantly. They expect a few polite words, maybe a smile, a handshake. But Barron doesn't smile. Instead, he leans into the microphone, his voice low, steady, and sharp enough to cut through the stale air of the old community center. "I wasn't planning to speak tonight. I was just here to listen. But something happened recently, something I can't ignore anymore." A hush falls over the room. Someone coughs in the back. A woman shifts uncomfortably in her chair, sensing the weight in his voice. Barron takes a breath, glancing briefly at the rows of aging faces staring back at him. Faces lined with decades of hard work, battles fought, families raised, and silent habits formed. "It's the little things," Barron says. "The things we don't even notice, the habits that creep in when no one's watching. I watched someone I cared about lose everything because of them." The room stiffens. You can feel it, the moment when casual attention sharpens into urgent focus. "4 simple mistakes," Barron says quietly. 4 things so common, so innocent, you would never think they could destroy a life. He lets the words hang in the air. No slideshow. No fancy statistics, just truth. "I'm not a doctor," he adds. "But tonight, if you listen, really listen, you might save yourself or someone you love." And with that, Barron steps back from the microphone, letting the heavy silence settle. A silence full of fear, regret, and sudden, desperate curiosity. For a moment, no one dares to move. The only sound is the faint buzz of the overhead lights and the soft rustle of a jacket sleeve somewhere in the 3rd row. Barron stands still, letting the weight of his words settle into the room like a thick fog. He knows what he's about to share won't be easy. It won't be comfortable. But he also knows some of them in this room won't have many more chances to hear it. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, worn piece of paper. Not a speech, not polished notes. Just a handwritten list. Simple, raw. Barron glances at it briefly, then folds it back into his hand like it's too heavy to hold for long. "I watched someone I admired," he says, voice tightening. "Someone who should still be here tonight. Fade away because of choices so small, so ordinary, they didn't even seem like choices at all." He pauses, searching the faces in front of him. Some look down. Others lean forward, eyebrows furrowed, hands gripping the edges of their seats. "Maybe you think you're doing everything right," Barron continues. "Maybe you believe that because you're still walking, still talking, still breathing, you're safe. A beat. But sometimes," he says, lowering his voice even more, "it's the habits that don't hurt today that end up stealing your tomorrow." The room feels colder now. A few heads nod slowly. Others sit frozen, as if afraid that even blinking might cause them to miss something important. Barron steps closer to the edge of the stage, his voice carrying a raw urgency. "Tonight, I'll tell you about 4 mistakes. Not theories, not rumors. Things I saw with my own eyes." He clenches the folded paper tighter in his hand. "And if just one person here listens, if just one of you decides to change something tonight, maybe that will be the difference between another sunrise, or a story someone else tells about why you're no longer here." The silence that follows isn't empty. It's heavy. It's alive. It's full of a fear no one dares speak aloud, but everyone can feel. And in that silence, Barron finally lifts his head, steady and clear. "Let's start with the first mistake." Barron unfolds the small piece of paper in his hand, the crinkle of the worn edges somehow sounding louder than the crowd's shallow breathing. He glances down at it for only a moment, then looks back up, locking eyes with no one and yet everyone at once. "The first mistake," he says, voice slow and deliberate, "is one almost every senior I know makes without a second thought." He steps forward, as if closing the invisible gap between himself and the people who now hang onto every word. They eat their heaviest meal right before bed. A few people shift uncomfortably in their seats. One man in the second row lets out a soft, almost guilty cough. Barron continues, his voice steady, almost sorrowful. I used to visit a man named Walter, a proud veteran, strong, sharp, someone who had seen things most of us could never imagine. Every evening, Walter would treat himself to a big meal. Heavy, greasy, satisfying. He said it helped him sleep better. Barron shakes his head slightly, the memory visibly tightening his jaw. But what Walter didn't realize was that every late-night meal was slowly making his heart work harder, his blood pressure rise, his digestion struggle. He paces slowly across the stage, as if walking through the memories himself. At his age, his body couldn't process heavy food like it once did. Instead of resting at night, his heart raced, his stomach churned, his blood sugar spiked. And while he slept, his body fought a silent war he didn't even know was happening. Barron pauses, letting the weight of the words settle in. The night Walter didn't wake up, he says quietly. No one blamed the meal, no one even thought about it. He looks down for a moment, the room so silent you could hear the flicker of the old fluorescent lights. But sometimes, Barron says, lifting his gaze, it's not the dramatic things that take us. It's the small, everyday choices, the ones we brush off because they don't hurt right away. He steps closer to the edge of the stage again, voice firm. If you take nothing else from tonight, take this. Finish your last meal at least 3 to 4 hours before bed. Give your body time to heal, not struggle. A few nods ripple through the audience. Some take mental notes. Others shift with a new kind of discomfort, the realization that maybe they've been gambling with their health without even knowing it. Barron lets the silence linger a moment longer before folding the paper once more in his hand. And that ... was just the first mistake. Barron lets the final word about Walter drift into the stillness, his eyes scanning the room once more. One mistake, he says quietly, and it was already enough to steal a life. He folds the paper carefully, almost ritualistically, and tucks it into his jacket. No more notes. Now it's just him, the crowd, and the truth. But Walter wasn't alone, Barron continues. There's a second habit that's just as dangerous. Maybe even worse because it feels so harmless. He paces slowly, voice low but urgent. I want you to stay with me until the very end tonight, he says, locking eyes with a woman in the front row who hasn't blinked in nearly a minute. Because mistake number 4, the one I'll share last ... is the one almost everyone here is probably making without realizing it. And it's the one that terrifies me the most. A ripple of unease runs through the room. Chairs creak. Hands tighten on armrests. Every eye stays fixed on Barron, afraid to look away. But first, Barron says, his voice tightening, let me tell you about the second silent danger. He pauses just long enough to make them lean forward in their seats, hearts beating a little faster. It's something we've been told to do our whole lives. Something we believe is always good, but at the wrong time. It can be deadly. Barron steps to the edge of the stage again, almost as if he's about to step right into the crowd. Mistake number 2, he says, voice steady, is drinking too much liquid before bed. A few puzzled glances ripple through the audience, confusion, disbelief. Barron nods slightly, as if he expected it. Water, tea, juice, we're told to stay hydrated. And yes, hydration is critical. But flooding your system right before sleep, that's a hidden trap most people never see coming. He lets the words hang heavy, challenging them to think deeper. Barron pauses for a moment, letting the confusion settle. He knows how strange it sounds. How something so simple, drinking water, could possibly be dangerous. He steps down from the stage now, walking slowly between the rows of chairs, his voice softer, pulling them closer. As we get older, Barron says, our bodies change. Your bladder becomes weaker. Your kidneys process fluids differently. And your blood pressure doesn't adjust as fast when you move. He stops near an elderly man sitting stiffly at the end of the aisle, then turns to face the crowd again. If you drink too much before bed, you're setting yourself up for danger in more ways than one. He raises a hand, counting softly on his fingers. First, you wake up in the middle of the night. You get out of bed too fast. Your blood pressure crashes before your body can catch up. He mimics the motion, standing too quickly, swaying slightly, and several people in the audience instinctively brace themselves in their chairs. It only takes one fall, Barron says gravely. One slip on the way to the bathroom, one hard hit to the floor. And everything changes. He looks around, his gaze sharp, unflinching. Broken hips, head injuries, strokes. All because of a habit that felt safe. The room is utterly still now. Second, he continues, even if you don't fall, waking up multiple times destroys your deep sleep. Your brain never gets the chance to repair itself. Your heart stays under stress. Your memory, your focus, your immune system, they all suffer. Barron lets that sink in, watching as realization dawns across the room like a slow, heavy fog. And over time, he says, voice dropping almost to a whisper, poor sleep isn't just about being tired. It's about losing years off your life. He takes a slow step back toward the stage. Stay with me, Barron urges, voice stronger now, because the next mistake, the third one, is even harder to spot. He climbs the steps back onto the stage, his figure small but commanding against the faded curtain backdrop. And it's one I guarantee almost everyone here is making tonight, without even knowing it. The weight of those words presses into the audience like a silent hand, gripping every heart in the room. Barron stands tall at the center of the stage, letting the tension stretch just long enough to make the air feel heavier. Every eye stays locked on him. Even the smallest movements, a hand adjusting a sweater, a foot shifting on the floor, seem louder now. 2 mistakes already, he says, his voice slicing through the silence. 2 traps hidden inside what we believe are harmless routines. He glances out over the sea of faces, proud, worn, anxious. But the third mistake, Barron says, lowering his voice, is even more dangerous, because you can't see it. You can't taste it. You can't feel it until it's too late. A murmur ripples through the room, a low, nervous shuffle of bodies reacting to a threat they can't yet name. Barron steps forward again, bridging the gap between the stage and the audience, as if dragging them closer into the storm he's about to unleash. Mistake number 3, he says, voice sharp and clear, is sleeping in a room that's too warm. Several heads tilt slightly, confusion flickering across their features. Barron nods, as if answering their unspoken question. A warm room feels safe, he says, comforting, familiar. But for your body, especially after 60, it's a battlefield. He paces slowly, his words flowing like a current pulling the listeners deeper. When you sleep in too much heat, your heart works harder all night long. Your body struggles to cool itself, even when you don't realize it. And every extra beat, every drop of extra effort, slowly wears you down. He stops, staring straight into the front row. Dehydration, thickened blood, increased risk of heart attacks, strokes. He lets each word land like a stone dropped into still water. You won't feel it happening, Barron warns. You might even think you're just sleeping badly. Until one night, your body loses the fight it didn't even know it was fighting. He pauses, letting the terror of unseen dangers seep into every corner of the room. And the worst part? Barron says, his voice tightening. It's so easy to fix, if you know what to look for. He takes a slow breath, gathering the weight of the room into his next sentence. Stay with me, Barron says, his voice lowering to a near whisper, because mistake number 4, the one I'm saving for last, is the deadliest of them all. Barron steps slowly along the edge of the stage, his hands clasped loosely behind his back, as if carrying the invisible weight of the truths he's about to lay down. "You might think," he says, voice calm but firm, "that a cozy, warm bedroom is comforting. That piling on extra blankets, closing the windows, cranking up the heat, it's just part of getting older." He stops, facing the audience full on. But the human body was never designed to sleep in heat. Barron gestures to the crowd, as if inviting them to picture it with him. Imagine your heart, right now, beating steadily, doing its job without asking for thanks. But when your bedroom turns into a furnace, your heart has to pump harder to regulate your body temperature. Your blood thickens, your vessels constrict. He pauses, allowing the invisible scene to build in every listener's mind. Instead of resting, the way your heart needs to, it's fighting. Every minute you're under those heavy blankets. Every hour you lie sweating under stale, warm air. A few in the crowd wipe their foreheads unconsciously. Others shift in their seats, the image too vivid to ignore. For younger people, it's uncomfortable. For older people, it's deadly. Barron's voice sharpens slightly. Higher nighttime temperatures have been linked to more heart attacks, more strokes, more sudden deaths, and hardly anyone talks about it. He lets that revelation hang in the air, a silent indictment. "Walter's room, Barron says, voice cracking slightly with the memory, was kept warm because the staff thought it would be comforting." He looks away briefly, swallowing hard. They didn't know. They didn't mean harm. But sometimes good intentions can become lethal mistakes. Barron turns back to the crowd, eyes fierce now. "If you want to protect yourself, make your room cooler. 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit, that's the sweet spot. Layer light, breathable blankets. Let fresh air in whenever possible." He holds their gaze for a moment longer, making sure the words stick like anchors in their minds. "A cool room isn't just about comfort," he says finally. "It's about survival." And with that, he steps back toward the center of the stage, the weight of his message sinking deep into every heart in the room. Barron stands silently for a moment, letting the weight of what he just revealed sink in. He can see it on their faces now, the creeping realization that what felt safe and familiar might have been quietly turning against them. The room feels colder now, but not because of the temperature. It's the chill of understanding. 3 mistakes, Barron says slowly, his voice almost a whisper. 3 hidden dangers. Hiding in your own home. He steps back from the edge of the stage, his hands tightening into fists at his sides. "But the last mistake," he says, pausing as if the words themselves hurt to say. "The last one. Is the one I fear most." A murmur ripples through the audience, an anxious shifting of bodies, a cough muffled by a trembling hand. Barron's voice grows sharper, more urgent. "Because this mistake doesn't just steal your health. It doesn't just steal your energy." He looks across the room, eyes hard, voice almost breaking. "It steals your breath. It steals your heart. And most terrifying of all. It steals your future without giving you any warning." A woman in the second row presses a hand to her mouth. An old man in the back leans forward in his chair, as if getting closer might somehow shield him from what's coming. "It's the silent killer," Barron says quietly. "And almost no one, no doctor, no nurse, no news anchor, ever warns you about it." He lets the tension thicken, the room practically holding its breath. "Stay with me," Barron urges, his voice urgent. "Because if you don't hear this, if you don't understand this. It could be the very thing that ends your story when it's not supposed to." He looks down briefly, steadying himself, then lifts his head again, voice like steel. "In a moment, I'll tell you what it is." And with that, he steps back, silent once more, as the room collapses into an unbearable, aching stillness. Barron lifts his head slowly, the weight of what he's about to say pressing visibly on his shoulders. The room is silent, frozen between dread and desperate curiosity. Finally he speaks, voice low, rough around the edges, as if dragging the words out of somewhere deep and painful. The fourth mistake, Barron says, the one almost nobody talks about, is sleeping in the wrong position. A ripple of confusion flashes across the audience. Eyebrows lift, heads tilt, but no one dares speak. Barron steps closer to them, his voice tightening like a drawn bowstring. When you're young, he says, your body can handle almost anything. Sleeping on your back, sleeping flat. It doesn't matter. He glances across the room, his gaze heavy, serious. But after 60, things change. Your airways become softer. Your blood flow slows. Your heart needs more help just to keep working through the night. Barron's voice drops even lower, forcing everyone to lean forward, listening harder. Sleeping flat on your back, he says, can cause your tongue and soft tissues to collapse into your throat, blocking your airway. It can trigger silent, deadly sleep apnea, even in people who have never been diagnosed. He paces slowly, the gravity of his words weighing down every step. It can lead to sudden drops in oxygen, to heart strain, to strokes that happen while you dream, never giving you the chance to wake up and fight back. The audience sits stiff and unmoving now, some clutching the arms of their chairs, others frozen mid-breath. Barron stops, standing at the very edge of the stage. And if you already have heart problems, if you're carrying just a little too much weight, or if you've ever been told you snore loudly at night, hooks. He lets the sentence trail off, leaving the terrifying truth unspoken, but understood. Then sleeping on your back isn't just risky, it's Russian roulette. He lets the words slice the air cleanly, mercilessly. But here's the good news, Barron says, his voice softening slightly. There's a way to fight back. He pauses, letting a thin thread of hope weave through the heavy silence. And I'll tell you exactly how, because nobody else is going to. Barron lets the silence stretch for just a moment longer, the tension coiled tight in every corner of the room. Then he speaks, softer now, not with fear, but with fierce, urgent hope. The answer isn't complicated, he says, his voice steady. It's not expensive. You don't need a fancy machine or a dozen prescriptions. He steps down from the stage again, walking slowly among the rows of anxious faces. It's something simple, something powerful. Barron stops beside an elderly woman with trembling hands folded tightly in her lap. You need to sleep on your left side, he says, whenever you can. He lets the simplicity of it settle, a single act that could save lives. Sleeping on your left side helps your heart work more easily. It keeps your airways open. It supports better circulation. It even reduces acid reflux, protecting your lungs and your brain while you sleep. He smiles slightly, not with triumph, but with a bittersweet sadness. It's not perfect, Barron admits. Nothing ever is. But it's one of the simplest, most powerful changes you can make, starting tonight. He straightens, addressing the room like a commander addressing his troops. If you struggle to stay on your side while you sleep, use a body pillow. Tuck a small pillow behind your back to keep you from rolling over. Elevate your head slightly with a firm pillow to keep your airway open. He points to his own chest lightly, making the point more personal. This isn't about comfort anymore. It's about survival. The audience watches him with wide eyes, some nodding slowly, others gripping their chairs as if anchoring themselves against the flood of emotions crashing over them. You don't have to make 100 changes tonight, Barron says, his voice warming. You just have to start with one. He steps back toward the stage, his movements slow, deliberate. Start with the way you sleep, he says firmly. Because every morning you wake up, every sunrise you get to see, that's a victory you fought for in the dark. And with that, he climbs the steps again, ready to deliver the final, most powerful part of his message. Barron stands still at the center of the stage, a single spotlight casting long shadows behind him. He lets the last words, the image of fighting for another sunrise, settle deep into the hearts of the people staring up at him. And then he leans into the microphone, his voice low but pulsing with urgency. "I know what some of you are thinking," he says. "Maybe you're telling yourself, 'I'm fine. I'm strong. I've made it this far.'" He shakes his head slowly, almost sadly. Walter thought that too. A heavy silence falls over the room. The mention of Walter again, the man who didn't wake up, brings a fresh wave of stillness, sharper than before. "Strength isn't about pretending you're invincible," Barron says, voice tightening. "It's about knowing when the rules have changed, and having the courage to change with them." He steps forward, closing the invisible distance between himself and the people frozen in their seats. "Your body is whispering to you every night, the aches you brush off, the heartbeats you ignore, the nights you toss and turn and tell yourself it's nothing." Barron's voice cracks slightly, not weakness, but raw, naked truth. Those are the warning shots. He grips the edge of the podium, knuckles whitening. Don't wait until it's too late to listen. His gaze sweeps the room, catching eyes, holding them, refusing to let them look away. "Tonight, when you go home, you have a choice. A pause. You can close your eyes and hope nothing happens. Another pause, longer this time, the tension almost unbearable. Or you can fight for one more sunrise." He straightens, the strength in his voice rising like a tide. "Change your dinner time, watch your drinks, cool your room. Sleep on your side." He lets the list land one by one, like orders in a battlefield where the stakes are life itself. One small change tonight, could mean 10 more years with your family. 10 more summers. 10 more chances to say the things you were saving for someday. He steps back, the force of his words still vibrating in the charged air. "Don't gamble with tomorrow," Barron says finally, his voice rough but unbreakable. "Win it." Barron lets his last words echo into the stillness, a silence so thick it feels almost sacred. He doesn't rush. He doesn't fill the space with empty chatter. He simply stands there, letting everyone in the room wrestle with the weight of what they've just heard. Finally, he speaks again, his voice softer now, almost like a son speaking to his own family. "We all think we have more time." He lets that sentence hang in the air, heavier than anything he said all night. "We plan for next month. We promise ourselves we'll start living better after the holidays, after the birthdays, after life gets a little less busy." Barron steps slowly across the stage, his footsteps echoing lightly against the wooden floor. But time doesn't wait. It doesn't pause just because we're not ready. It doesn't ask if you meant to change tomorrow. He stops again, looking out over the audience, their faces lined with years of love, struggle, sacrifice. "I'm not telling you these things tonight to scare you," Barron says, his voice steady. "I'm telling you because I believe you still have so much more to give." He smiles faintly, not the easy smile of youth, but the bittersweet smile of someone who has already seen too much loss. More memories to make, more mornings to greet, more stories to tell the people you love. Barron lets out a slow breath, as if pushing away the sorrow trying to drag him down. He smiles faintly, not the easy smile of youth, but the bittersweet smile of someone who has already seen too much loss. More memories to make, more mornings to greet, more stories to tell the people you love. Barron lets out a slow breath, as if pushing away the sorrow trying to drag him down. But it starts with tonight, with the decisions you make when nobody's watching, with the small choices that add up to one more summer, one more birthday, one more moment that matters. He places a hand lightly over his heart, voice barely above a whisper now. "Protect your future. You're worth it." And as he steps back into the center of the stage, the audience doesn't just hear him anymore. They feel him. Barron stands at the center of the stage, the hush of the room so complete that every breath feels amplified. He lets his gaze sweep slowly over the crowd. Faces that have seen wars, marriages, births, losses. Faces that carry the invisible scars of a life lived fully, and sometimes painfully. You've fought hard to get here, Barron says, voice thick with emotion, harder than most people will ever understand. He takes a step forward, his hands loose at his sides, his heart clearly out in the open. You built families. You built communities. You built a country that others now stand on. The weight of those words settles into the room like a warm, aching blanket. You don't owe anyone proof that you're strong. He pauses, letting that truth land. But you owe yourself something. Barron's voice softens, becoming almost tender. You owe yourself the chance to enjoy every year you fought for. The chance to wake up tomorrow without fear. The chance to live really live. Not just survive. A woman near the front dabs at her eyes. An old man in the back stiffens his jaw, blinking too fast. Barron sees it, he feels it, and it only makes his voice stronger. Tonight is your line in the sand. Tonight is the night you stop gambling with your future. He steps even closer now, his figure sharp against the soft backdrop of the worn stage. Because the people who love you, your sons, your daughters, your grandchildren, they're not ready to lose you. His voice cracks just slightly on the last word, raw and human. And deep down neither are you. Barron stands there, breathing hard but steady, as if holding the line not just for himself, but for everyone in that room. Barron lifts his head slowly, standing tall against the weight of the moment. No longer just a young man on a stage, but a messenger carrying something far bigger than himself. His voice rises not loud but powerful, filled with everything the audience didn't even realize they were still hoping to hear. You still have chapters left to write. He lets the words fall like steady drops of rain on dry ground. Moments you haven't lived yet, words you haven't spoken yet, memories you haven't made yet. Barron steps closer, his presence filling the room like a steady fire that refuses to die down. Your life is not just history. He gestures to the people in front of him, the bent backs, the weathered hands, the eyes that still gleam with life. It's still happening, right now. Tonight. He lets the weight of the truth settle deep into every heart. You don't have to wait for a second chance. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you it's okay to fight for yourself. Barron's voice grows firmer, filled with the unshakable certainty of youth, fused with the wisdom of those who came before him. Tonight, you can claim your next chapter. With a simple choice, a simple change. He presses a hand lightly over his heart. Protect your future. Protect your health. Protect the memories you haven't made yet. He draws in a breath, not because he needs it, but because the moment deserves it. You've come too far to let something so small steal everything you've built. He lifts his head higher now, voice steady as stone. This is your fight, and you are not done yet. Barron stands tall, his voice steady, his heart wide open for all to see. He looks out over the room, not as a speaker addressing strangers, but as a son, a grandson, a young man who knows how fragile time really is. Tonight, when you lay down to sleep, he says, you have a choice. His voice is soft, but it carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken prayers. You can pretend you didn't hear this. Pretend you'll have another chance to change later. He pauses, letting the silence answer for him. Or you can fight for yourself. You can finish your last meal earlier. Drink a little less before bedtime. Cool your room, turn to your left side, and sleep knowing you gave your body the best chance it could possibly have. The Baron's eyes shine under the stage lights, not with tears, but with fierce, stubborn hope. Because you deserve to wake up tomorrow stronger. You deserve to live every day you fought so hard to reach. He lifts his hand again, open, steady, like an invitation to rise. One small change tonight, Barron says, voice ringing with quiet power, can buy you 1,000 better mornings. He smiles, a real, warm smile, and the entire room seems to exhale at once, the tension lifting like a heavy fog finally breaking. Fight for your mornings, Barron says, and the sun will rise for you, again and again. And as he steps back from the microphone, The room remains silent. Not because they have nothing to say, but because every heart is too full for words.